Grace and peace to you, my brothers and my sisters. Um, and we're grateful tonight that we are back in Bible study, and we've had a lengthy pause in Tuesday evening Bible study due to the summer season, a break that I think all of us needed. And of course, the Labor Day weekend signals the unofficial end of the summer season, and now we are back to our normal routines, and people are back to work, and we're back in church. And we praise God that He has kept us safe through the summer season. I hope that if you were able to have some vacation time, whether you were able to go away or remain close to home, that it was a time of relaxation and rest, and just to be away from our normal routines, I think, is vacation enough. So we thank God for this new season that is upon us. Summer is about ended, and we look forward to a beautiful season of autumn, which is soon upon us. Thank God for health and strength, and for having kept us throughout this year. And thank God that you have continued to remain faithful to God and to your church. We thank God for our extended family, not only here in the Philadelphia area, but beyond the state of Pennsylvania, beyond the Commonwealth, and other places and states across the country who join us not only in Bible study but in worship on Sunday mornings. We're grateful for you. I want to make just a few brief announcements before we continue in our Bible study lesson tonight. On this coming Sunday in our church is designated as Family and Friends Day / Back to Church Sunday. We're asking that you will not only to come to church yourselves, but to invite members of your family and friends to join you in worship with us on this coming Sunday in Monumental's Sanctuary. And it has always been one of our signature days in the life of our church, even prior to the pandemic. But we are asking that you would be supportive and bring persons to church, of course, who may belong to church already, but particularly those who have no church affiliation. Introduce them to the church and to the gospel and to what it means to be in Christ. That's this coming Sunday at 10 o'clock, Family and Friends Day. And you may know someone who was once in church and is no longer. You may want to try to urge them, influence them to come back to church. Also, revival is coming up. Our annual fall revival is always an exciting time. It gives us opportunity to reignite the fire, to recharge our spiritual batteries. We have once again coming as our revivalist Bishop J. Lewis Felton, who is the pastor and servant leader of the Mount Airy Church of God in Christ, a friend and dearly beloved colleague and brother who always challenges us and inspires us and strengthens and encourages us in our walk with God. The dates are September the 26th and 27th. It's a Monday and Tuesday evening. Monday evening and Tuesday evening, September 26th and 27th, following the fourth Sunday. Monday and Tuesday following the fourth Sunday, our annual fall revival with Bishop J. Lewis Felton. Also, as you heard on Sunday, Digging Deeper is back. It is a Sunday evening conversation about the morning sermon led by Dr. Quentin Robertson of our church. Hope that you will join that conversation. It's an excellent time now that it is restarting. If you have not joined it previously, hope that you will do so. You can go on our website and get the Zoom information for 7 o'clock on Sunday evenings. We are, of course, have entered another phase of the pandemic, and we have, as announced on last Sunday and the previous Sunday, we are relaxing the protocol regarding social distancing. All pews will be opened, which will allow more seating for persons who may have chosen not to come because of fear of not being able to be seated. Still, of course, we'll wear masks for the foreseeable future for our protection, and still urge persons who are feeling ill or whose immune systems are compromised to take extra precaution and extra care, because even though we have arrived at a different stage of the pandemic, we still want to be diligent. We want to be careful as well. So we thank God, though, that we have moved to this stage of life and church life, where we're kind of gradually reopening in other areas as well. As you heard on Sunday, our church school is reopening on a limited basis, beginning on the fourth Sunday in this month. I'm very much concerned, as all of us ought to be. Not only have we been concerned over the past 2 years about our children and in terms of school, of their secular education, but our concern extends beyond that. Our concern is also about their spiritual education, their education in Christ, and we don't want to lose a generation in the church, and so for 2 years we have not been able to have our children in person, in fellowship with each other, and involved in normal youth activities as we did prior to the pandemic. So we want to try to move in that direction again, because we can't lose a generation of our young people. We have to engage them in the life of the church while they are young. Train up a child while he or she is young. So when he or she is old, he or she the text suggests will not fall away. Will at least remember that training, will not depart from it. Does not mean that children will not stray when they become adults, but it means that they will have the foundation, the moral and spiritual and ethical foundation that will always be with them, that they cannot ever deny. And so I'm urging our parents and grandparents as well to make sure that your children and grandchildren, you put them in a position to re-engage in the life of the church through our youth activities, particularly through our church school. Now the world, of course, is in mourning over the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And my Ministry Matters on this coming week is about not just the death of the Queen, but about the legacy of the Queen, because the Queen leaves a complicated legacy that involves, of course, a great woman, um, a woman of deep faith as well, but a complicated legacy um, concerning the oppression, the British Empire and its oppression of of black people, of Africans, of the people of India, of the people of the Caribbean. So I hope that you will take note on Monday mornings to read my ministry matters, and particularly this coming Monday concerning the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And then finally, I want to remind us of our Walk by Faith effort. As I announced on Sunday, we have finished phase 2 of our uh, 4 projects. We have done the sidewalks, of course, and just today, the contractor finished with the pointing of the stonework on our building. And of course, as I tried to explain on Sunday, water and the weather, the cold, the heat, all has an effect on the concrete that holds the stones together, and it begins to crack over the years. Water gets in those cracks and seeps inside the walls inside the building and ruins the inside. And so, the longer that we delay those kind of repairs, the worse it gets, and the greater the expense, because then it leads to other expenses. And so that work is done, and now we will focus our attention on our parking lot. And again, I'm grateful. We are grateful, and I say not me alone, but we, meaning our deacons, our trustees, our church leadership. We're grateful for the support of our members and friends of Monumental who have helped us. And I've always said that the load is easier to carry when more of us carry the load. And so I'm again asking on their behalf that we continue to give. If we have completed our pledge, I'm asking that we would continue to give as the Lord has blessed us, so that we can finish the work. And even when we finish the work, there's always work to be done. If you own a home, you know that there's always work that must be done. We live in a city where our churches, old churches, our building is about 100 years old now, and these buildings are in constant need of repair. That's a fact of life, and it's something that we cannot avoid. And so we thank God that He has blessed us to be able to stay on top of these things, and to try to maintain a building that represents our God and represents who we are as people of God. Now to our lesson. We are continuing in the Sermon on the Mount. We have finished chapter 5, and chapter 5, of course, has dealt with several things. And let me do this. Let me just a very brief review of where we are. When we say the Sermon on the Mount, we're really talking not so much about a sermon as much as we are a group of teachings. We're talking about a group of teachings presented by Jesus to followers, to persons who were making decisions about whether to follow Christ, and that group of teachings begins in chapter uh, chapter 4 in the Gospel according to Saint Matthew, or rather chapter chapter 5. I'm sorry, in the Gospel according to Saint Matthew, chapters 5, 6, and 7 make up what is called the Sermon on the Mount. And the reason we know that is that chapter, if we go back, chapter 5 begins with the words, when he saw the crowds, he went up on the mountainside and sat down. So that tells us that he's beginning his teaching on the Sermon on the Mount. Chapter 8 begins when he came down from the mountain. Large crowds followed him. So within that framework, from the beginning of chapter 5 to the end of chapter 7, is what we would label as the Sermon on the Mount, teachings by Jesus spelling out requirements of the kingdom. What does Jesus require? What does Jesus expect of those who would follow him? That's really, those are really the key questions when we talk about the whole idea of why the Sermon on the Mount in the first place. Why is it here? Why does Matthew locate it early in Jesus's ministry? It's because Jesus is like a president's inaugural address. President lays out for us his agenda, how he thinks, how he or she thinks, how what will it take for us to go where we need to go? See, and so the same thing with Jesus. Jesus is laying out for us his plan, his program for fellowship. What does it mean to follow Jesus? What does Jesus expect from us? And I think a very important question, which we raised in the very beginning of this the sermon, teaching on the Sermon on the Mount, is it practical? Because some may say this stuff is not practical. I mean, who can do this? And they point to the fact that, well, these teachings were given 2,000 years ago, to farmers, and we're in a technological age. We're living in the 21st century. We travel by jet planes, not by donkey in wagons. Is this practical? And of course, the answer is yes. I mean, Jesus's teachings are as relevant today as they were then, and we can look around in our world today, and especially in our country, and see how relevant they still are. That these are requirements of what it takes to be a part of the kingdom in any age. This is what it takes to follow Jesus, and Jesus is saying to us, now here it is, and you can take it or leave it. You can be with me or against me. I'm not going to force you. I'd like you to come along, but it's your choice. I mean, he's speaking to people on the mountain side, listening to him, but by extension, he's speaking to us today and saying to us, you take it or leave it. Um, but this is what it is going to take in order to follow me. And remember, there really two sections we've already dealt with in the Sermon on the Mount. The first was the Beatitudes. Remember, blessed, to begin with the phrase "Blessed are you," and then there was the section of what we call these antitheses, or these comparisons. You have heard it said by to those in days of old, but I say unto you. We finished that before our summer break. Now we're going into a third section, and we're going leaving chapter 5 and we're going into chapter 6, and I'm going to read the section that will occupy our attention this evening, and it begins at the first verse of chapter 6. And this is what Jesus says. So he is shifting. Is a transition that's taking place because he went through all of these antitheses. Now chapter 6 begins with these words: "Be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men, to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy," this is what this is about, "when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honored by men. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in what? In secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. I started to go further than that because King James Version says, your Father who sees you in secret will reward you openly, is what is in the King James Version. And so we want to look at this passage because it's very, very interesting, I think, in terms of all of the, Jesus touches all of the bases of our lives. I mean, he's talked about what has he talked about that we've already learned, we've already discussed: loving enemies and murder, and the murder that we commit in our hearts. He's talked about adultery. He's talked about divorce. He's talking about oath taking. He's talking about the eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, and of course the Beatitudes. Very practical, just like touching every base in our lives, leaving nothing untouched, no stone unturned. So here he goes into acts of righteousness. Let's call these, there are 3 acts of righteousness. 3 acts of righteousness. Right? Giving to the needy, prayer, and fasting. Those are the 3 acts of righteousness. Giving to the needy is the first. Prayer is the second. And fasting is the third. Acts of righteousness. Now let's again look at the word righteousness. because righteousness as a word is not too popular today, is it? I mean, we want to be called a lot of things, but how many of us want to be called righteous? We want to be called, I don't know, cool, popular, uh, in the know. Um, I don't know. I'll use an old word, hip. You know, um, but 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 righteous is not in the modern vocabulary, and maybe because of what it connotes. Maybe because it's identified with being holy or holier than thou, or maybe because it's identified with being boring or square or uninteresting. I don't know, but Jesus has a lot to say about righteousness, and if you want to follow Jesus, that's one of the requirements. I don't know if that makes a difference, but it is. And remember, if we go back, I want to remember. Let's go back because he 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 kind of touches on it earlier. Remember, we talked about it. If we go back to chapter 5, and it looks like this is verse 20. It says, "For I tell you that unless your righteousness," remember we quoted that many times. Jesus is saying, "For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven." So he assumes righteousness and says, you got to have it, but it's got to be more than that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. Righteousness is got to be a part of the Christian character. And why? Well, primarily because God is righteous, right? So if God is righteousness, then God is requiring righteousness in us. Now then we need to be very clear on what righteousness is, because again the connotation is that it's somebody that's not, you know, that maybe it's not humanly possible to be righteous, because maybe we associate righteousness with the wrong thing, maybe with perfection. Righteousness, I guess the only way I can describe it is to use this. You're not supposed to do this, but to use the word to describe the word and to define it. To be righteous is to be right. To be in a right relationship with God and with others and with self. I mean, that's about. I mean, I don't know how else to define it. Is to be right. To be right then means to do right, and then to do the right thing. Because when we do that, then we're in right relationship with God. And so righteousness gives us the sense of adhering to godly principles, of justice. And I mean, you could use words justice and goodness and, well, again, righteousness, godliness. So Jesus is expecting a right behavior. Well, first of all, a right attitude then which leads to right behavior. So it's two things. It's attitude and its behavior. Righteousness has to do with how I think. It has to do with the condition of my heart, a heart that's right, and then the heart demonstrates right behavior. See, that's what Jesus is talking about. And he's saying that the righteousness of the Pharisees and teachers of the law was on one level, but that level never reached the heart. It was only what they did in terms of their actions. Anybody can act in a right way, but they can act in a right way for the wrong reasons. Jesus is saying that acting the right way is not enough. But what's important is the motive. What's important is the attitude. What's important is the condition of the heart. And so these are three acts of righteousness. Now, by performing these acts alone does not mean that one is that nothing else is required. But Jesus is saying that these are three very important acts that identify one with being my follower. If you want to be my follower, you will be known by your giving to the needy, right? Your prayer life, and your life of fasting. Okay. And so he's saying now, in regard to giving to the needy, which he takes first, he says, be careful. See? Not to do your acts of righteousness before men to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. Now, I'll come back to that, but let's go to verse 2. So when you give to the needy. Now, let's stop there, because the phrase, so when you give to the needy, Jesus does not say if you give to the needy. See, Jesus says when you give to the needy. There is an assumption that this is what you do if you are a Christian, if you are a follower of Christ. And it is not something new for Jesus. This is really Old Testament. It's a continuation of what was expected of even under the law. Not if you. It's like saying if you eat. You don't say if, you say when, because eating is not a if. Eating is a when. Like if you breathe. No, it's when. It's an expectation, and for the Christian life, giving becomes an expectation and a necessity, just like eating and breathing. So it's not all right, if you choose to give to the needy. No, that's not what Jesus is saying. Jesus saying giving is a part of the Christian's DNA. When you give, this is how your giving should be. when you give to the needy. And so, again, when we talk about giving to the needy, uh, the Old Testament has a lot to say about giving to the needy. Giving to the needy is woven into God's expectation of all of us. It's in the Old Testament, uh, and I've said time and time again. And what troubles me today is that there are so many Christians in America who cannot make a connection between the demands of the gospel, the demands of the Bible, with the care of the needy, and with the care of the poor, and with the care of the oppressed. I mean, there is an obvious connection. You cannot be a Christian and not care for the needy, and not care for the poor. It is impossible. See, you can't divorce Christianity from caring for these categories of persons that the Bible cares for, that God cares for. People who are in poverty, people who are oppressed, people who are treated unjustly. And again, it's sad that so many Christians today of a certain ilk have separated the demands of the gospel from categories of people that Jesus came to save. They don't care about the needy. They don't care about those who are treated unjustly, and they will vote against policies that will help these very people. See, you can tell how much Christianity a person has by the kind of politicians they vote for, because the kind of politicians they vote for represent policies that either are policies that are compassionate and kind toward these categories, or policies that don't care about people who are poor and people who are oppressed, and people who are treated unjustly. And so we see it all the time. There's a story in the Old Testament. You may recall. You've heard of Ahab and Jezebel, King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, and they were king and queen, and they were persons of great power. Well, of course, king and the queen had the power over this all of the subjects, and Ahab wanted Naboth's vineyard. Naboth was a poor man. He had a vineyard. Ahab the king wanted Naboth's vineyard, and Naboth didn't want to sell it, and Ahab was sulking in his castle, and his wife Jezebel said, "What's wrong with you?" And he said, "I wanted the vineyard, and Naboth wouldn't sell it to me." And she says, "What's wrong with you? Well, take it. You're the king." Which is what they do. And why did they take it? Because they could. And they are condemned and judged because of what? Because they took advantage of the weak and the poor. The Old Testament in particular, but also the New Testament, it's you can't read it without seeing the kind of the ways in which God takes sides with those who are oppressed and those who are poor. And so there's never any sense of if you give to the poor, but when you give to the poor. Giving is central to the Gospels. John 3:16, for God what? So loved the world that he did what? Because love what? Love does what? Love gives. that he gave. You know, God so loved, how would it sound? God so loved the world that he took. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And in giving his son, risked that giving because we know that his son was crucified. See how much are we willing to risk in terms of what we give? And so the whole sweep of the Bible, the Gospels, the life of Jesus, the teachings of the Old Testament about giving. Now the issue with giving is this. The issue with giving is when you give to the needy, why are you giving? And whose approval are you seeking? How's my time? Yeah. Whose approval are you seeking? Are you seeking God's approval, or are you seeking the praise and the applause of others? When I was thinking about this earlier, I was thinking about the praise and applause of others, and it may have nothing to do with the lesson, but I thought about I like football, and I was watching the game last night, and just thinking about how people are with you when you're making them feel good and when you're winning for them. And I was thinking about the game because it was a game between the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks, right? And the quarterback who used to play for the Seahawks left the Seahawks and is now playing for the Broncos, went back on the opposing team back to Seattle. Now, this brother won a Super Bowl for Seattle. He was the greatest quarterback the team had ever had. Won a Super Bowl, almost won a second one, should have won a second one. And went back to the old stadium and was booed ferociously. I mean, he had gone from hero to villain just because he left the team, and I just thought about how fans. I thought about the nature of fans and how there's no sense of, and maybe I'm just naive. I don't know. Maybe something's wrong with me, but no sense of gratitude, for what you did for us when you were here. And he left because the team didn't treat him right. No sense of gratitude for what you won us a Super Bowl, so at least we'll be civil and we'll thank you for that. Now we're not going to root for your team to beat us, but we're not going to be nasty towards you. But anyway, that has nothing to do with the lesson. But I thought when I start thinking about the praise and applause of others, I just think sometimes that we get caught up so much in the approval of others, and that's what this is really about, though. When you think about it, it's whose approval are we after when we do good deeds? Are we waiting to hear our name called? And if we don't hear it called, what do we do about that? And this comes very real, I think, when we hear this. When you give to the needy, and there are people who cannot give to the needy without it. Well, let me put it this way: some people give to the needy because it makes them feel superior. you know. And there's some people who give to the needy so they can brag about it. And they'll tell the whole church, the whole neighborhood, what they did for a person. That's who. Why are you doing it? Do we seek the approval of people, the applause of others, or do we seek God's approval? Because Jesus is saying it's not the giving to the needy that's the issue, because you ought to do that. He said when you do that, what's the motive behind it? He says, when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets. Like, look at me, y'all, I'm giving to the needy, give me some attention. He says, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honored by men. And that word hypocrites, if we trace that word, it's traced back to the Greek theater. And in the Greek theater, actors wore masks, to identify what role they were playing. And so it really has to do with being someone you're not. See? And so the mask you wore was the role you were playing, but you were a person behind the mask. You were not the role, if you understand what I'm saying. So that word hypocrite has a long history, but Jesus is talking about persons who are doing this in order to misrepresent who they really are, because what they're doing is not from their hearts. It's for approval. Jesus is saying they want the trumpets to sound. They want to blow the trumpet. They want everybody to come and see what they're doing. They want to be honored by men and women. But Jesus says, I tell you the truth. And he's done that before. We just got through with these contrasts, these antitheses, where he says, you've heard it said to people in times past, but I say unto you. He's making contrasts. He's saying that's what was said and done then, but I'm telling you something different. Listen to me, he says. So he says the same thing here in another way. He says, I tell you the truth, that they have received their reward in full. Now, Jesus is really being a little sarcastic, and we need to understand Jesus uses sarcasm sometimes, hyperbole sometimes. He says, they're going to receive their reward. Now, it's not the kind of reward they want, but they're going to receive, because if the reward they want is the approval of people, then they're going to be in for a big surprise, because the same people will turn on them in a New York minute. Say, but when you give to the needy, because he's coming back now, and it says, that's what's going to happen to them if they're giving to gain the approval of men and women, if they're giving to be seen, if they want attention drawn to them for what they're doing. Now he's saying you ought to do good, and in doing good, we will be seen doing good. Now don't think he's talking about that when you do good you shouldn't be seen, because he does say you are the light of the world. You don't hide your light under a bushel. So he's saying that, so that men will see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. He's saying that also, but he's talking about motive. He's talking about the reasons why we're giving. When you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, not to be taken literally, not talking about your right hand and your left hand. He's talking about you don't have to let other, even other parts of you know. You know, if it's coming from the heart, just do it. If nobody know, sometimes you may even want to give, and the person you're giving to may not know. You know, there's sometimes you hear people giving millions of dollars and it's anonymous. My God, how you give millions of dollars to a hospital or to some charity, and you don't even want to be known. Now there may be other reasons why you don't want to be known, but it's still it's amazing, because it would seem like you'd want to be known. So don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Again, now he is not saying that your giving in secret is better than giving in public. He's not denouncing giving in public, because there is still the matter of your light shining, and people need to know, and can be influenced, and you can be a witness by your giving, and be helpful to others and encouraging to others in their giving. But he's saying, if you're giving for the trumpet to sound, then that's the wrong motive. Rather, if you're giving in secret, meaning that you're not giving to be seen, but you're giving for God's approval, then it is God who will reward you. Now, I ask you, I think my time is about out. I ask you, who do you really want to reward you? I mean, think about it. Whose reward is genuine? Whose reward does not change? And I think what, not think, but I know what Jesus is getting at is that ultimately the only one who can really reward us anyway is God. What kind of reward can we get from men and women other than their accolades and praise? You know, other than a plaque. You know, and what we gonna do with all those plaques? What are we gonna do with all of those plaques? We pack them up, put them in a box, and so whose approval? It goes back to whose approval. Jesus, be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men, and we could add before women, to be seen by them. In other words, you can be seen, but the motive should not, the reason is not to be seen. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. Again, who do you really want to reward you? Where do you want your reward to come from? Well, God bless you tonight. We have come to the end of our time, and listen, I'm so excited that we are back in the song. We are back in the saddle again, and so we will continue next week. Again, the three acts of righteousness. Giving to the needy. Now, it's also called alms giving, which I meant to say ALMS, alms giving, same thing. Giving to the needy, prayer, and fasting. So we will deal with prayer next week, and then we will deal with fasting. Is something that will be a very interesting lesson, because what actually is the meaning of fasting and the role of fasting for us as Christians. Some people fast, some don't. So we'll. I'm looking forward to both prayer and fasting, which is to come. God bless you, and we hope that you will join us on Sunday, hopefully in person, if not virtually, for our Family and Friends Day / Back to Church Sunday. We are looking forward to, well, yeah, back to church doesn't mean virtual, does it? It means we want to see you back in the sanctuary on this coming Sunday. Invite your family members, as I said, invite your friends. Call up somebody that you have not seen in the sanctuary and say, "Listen, you need to come on back. Come on back to the sanctuary. We miss you. We want you. We want you back. God misses you as well." All right. God bless you. Until we meet next time.